right, welcome back. Yes, it is a World Mental Health Day with the theme Making Wellbeing for All a National Priority. Making Wellbeing for All a National Priority. I'm looking at the front pages of I'm looking at the front page of a few dailies today that hammered on the conversation, and the figures are pretty pathetic when we look at the concerns around mental health. It says about 50% of Nigerians. That's what the papers did say this morning. I think those are pretty uninteresting statistics for you. You also talked about the fact that about 75% of Nigerians with mental health lack access to treatment. Part of statistics also did say that it's about one psychiatrist to 500,000 patients. That also is a very pathetic figure that I'm bringing to your notice this morning. Then we have the experts to do justice to this conversation this fantastic day. In the Lagos studio here, we have Dr. Tolu Oko Igaire. Yes, she is the Executive Director of the Institute of Counseling in Nigeria. So good to have you joining us this fantastic morning, Dr. Tolu.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And on the other side, via Zoom, we have Dr. Maymunah Kadri, who is a mental health advocate. So good to have you joining us on the show, Dr. Maymunah.
Good morning, everyone in the studio. Of course, good morning, Nigerians.
Yes,
Today is a very important day for us, World Mental Health Day, and secondly is my dad's birthday. So it's always a very important day for me.
Okay, fantastic. So
10/10 is an important day for me.
That in itself is an open invitation to Dr. Maymunah's father's birthday after the show. We would hit the venue. She would let us know shortly after the show. We say happy birthday to your dad. We say happy birthday to him out there. I will wish him all the very best and long life. Maymunah, let's stay with the other day that is most important, that's also very important to you, the Mental Health Day. The figures I reeled out, when we saw them this morning, I was like, this is really a bad case. This is really a bad case, especially when we talked about the numbers of psychiatrists that are available to treat Nigerians. I did say the figures are even less given to the Japa syndrome that we have right now. Tell me, how does this come to you, Dr. Maymunah?
Yes, I thank you very much. And today, can we say one day set aside to celebrate Mental Health Day? It's enough. Of course, the answer is what you know is as good as mine. It's not. It's supposed to be 365, 366 days in a year, but it's also good to start from somewhere. And the theme for the year is making mental health and well-being for all a global priority. Which is very key at this point in time, because with the onset of COVID-19 global pandemic, there were a lot of disruptions in services, in skills, and of course in funding. And within the first 1 year of the global pandemic, there was a 5% increase in anxiety and depression globally, and worse in the low and middle income countries like Nigeria. So let's correct that figure. It's one psychiatrist to 1 million Nigerians, not 500,000. And with the Japa syndrome, it's becoming worse because the mental health practitioners were sought after on a global scale. And so this is why making mental health and well-being a global priority is very key. Resources are not there. The skills are not really there. But what are we supposed to do as individuals, as a nation, as a community, and needing all hands on deck, because it trickles down to every family. Once a family is disrupted, it becomes dysfunctional, and of course the ripple effect spreads in our communities. So making it a priority is very key, because before the COVID-19, 1 out of every 8 person is already living with a mental illness. So imagine now that there's so much stressors, people are just languishing. They may not be clinically depressed, but they are not flourishing. People are just trying to even understand what they are going through. Let's not forget job, unemployment also became an issue, urbanization, migration, disruption in so many places, displacement too. So making it a priority, a global priority, it's something that all hands have to be on deck. It's not about the government, it's not about the corporate organizations, it's not about the educators, but everybody has to be.
Very much. A great opening, Dr. Maymunah. Let's come to you, Dr. Tolu, and it's something I'm sure is also of massive importance to you. And you and Dr. Maymunah, it's a big discussion for you almost every day of your life. But for us, you're going to have to make it a national priority also. It is what we hope to take from the global, which is with the global theme, which is global priority. We are talking of a national priority here. Let's get your opening on this day.
According to World Health Organization, 1 in every 4 Nigerians has a form of mental illness, and that is where the 50 million is coming from. So you are looking at 50 million out of 200 million people, so 1 in every 4. Yeah. But don't forget, that is mental illness. In mental health spectrum, in fact, when you begin to have mental illness, you are almost or even at the end of the spectrum. So it's a spectrum. So you could either be going towards optimal functionality or you could be moving towards mental illness. So so if they say if World Health Organization said 1 in 4 people is mentally ill, then we're in crisis. Because it means that when you are mentally ill, you are almost at the end of this spectrum, almost dysfunctional. Yeah. Right? But in mental health spectrum, your day-to-day stressor could actually push you towards this other side. So it means that every one of us has mental health. And every one of us at a point in time is dealing with something, one thing or the other. Now look at the way our society is even made. Look at Africans. Look at the way we think. Look at the family system. Look at the parenting style. Everything is trying to mess with our head, but we don't even think this is necessary, because until somebody is walking the street naked, we don't think the person has mental health issue. People are dealing with anxiety, overwhelming sadness, depression, loneliness. All of these things are affecting their functionality. How many people can actually come out and say, people say, is it possible to be optimally functional? Yes. Even if you are not staying at that particular point of optimal functionality, if you are not heading towards, this functionality side of the spectrum, then you are doing well. But in my head, when I look at Nigerians or Africans generally, I feel like I just see everybody heading towards the other side of the mental health spectrum, because we don't even take this seriously. People think, you are talking about psychiatrists. What about counselors? What about mental health counselors? What about psychologists? What about therapists? Do we even talk to counselors? It's like it's something that it's abnormal, So even the lack of manpower in mental health mental health field is when you are seeing a psychiatrist, it is believed that you need medication. Psychiatrists are medical doctors, so you need medication. But before you even get to that point, you woke up, you just feel sad. Everything is working well around you. You have a wonderful wife, you have wonderful kids. Everything seems to be good around you, but you just feel so sad. And you don't know why. Will it even cross your mind that I need to speak to someone, that what is going on with me? We don't. We just move on. As soon as people become dysfunctional, at the end of the day, what happened to them? And dysfunctionality does not mean that you need to even have mental illness. So people might not be functional at the same time, but they dress up and still come to office and still be sitting beside you. So this is a crisis that we are. I think the level of ignorance is high. We really don't know much about mental health, and it's better not to know and think we understand that we don't know. But I think we do not know, and we think we know. So I think there should be a very serious level of awareness in the field of mental health. Everybody should begin to take this seriously. Every one of us has mental health. From you to your teenagers that are suicidal, to your children that are growing up and they are not functioning well, everybody should begin to pay attention to kids, to teenagers, to yourself, to people around you, to your colleague that you know normally is always bubbly, that is coming in and is looking, sad and dejected. Every one of us should begin to pay attention. In conclusion of my thought, mental health is a state where you can think well, you can feel well, you can think right, you can feel right, and you can act right. Now, so for every one of us, we should begin to ask ourselves, am I thinking right? Am I feeling right? And am I acting right? And not just you, the people around you as well.
Dr. Tolu, those three questions, I'm sure if we begin to tick the boxes, some of us might just tick one box and leave the other two. Some will tick two and leave one. So by implication, we all have, to a large extent, mental concerns. Not craze, not madness. I mean, let's not get it twisted. We tried to correct this at the beginning of the show. This is not madness. It's a concern. It's a mental health concern. Let's look at the challenge around personnel. That is very key. Like the figures I did reel out earlier, which I said has gone down. Nigerians has only 300 psychiatrists to treat over 200 million people. Why don't we have a large number of Nigerians vying into this aspect of medicine or this aspect of professionalism? Or have they all left?
So, I mean, I think it has always been our thing. I think it's cultural. I think it's cultural because people go to their church, their mosque, they have a list when they have mental health issues. They whip people, they cane them, they tie them with chains. This thing is still going on in Nigeria till date when they have mental health issues. So they feel like, oh, whip the demon out of his body. That's what everything we demonize, we spiritualize it, all of these things, right? So that is it is rooted, the lack of manpower is rooted in our culture. And then, I mean, there's an adage that says, oh, you don't take your matter to an outsider. So when you begin to develop those problems, instead of going to speak to a therapist, you will rather keep it to yourself. And then before you know it, this will begin to degenerate and it becomes psychosis. But at the early stage, were you able to do anything? Can you talk, oh, I'm a man up, man don't cry. I don't even envy the men, right? Man up, men don't cry, all of those things. And you are expected to have everything well put together, as if you are not human. We are Africans, we have thick skin. What do you mean? You are brain. Mental health affects your brain. We take care of our body. We go to the hospital for checkup. Do we do that? Do we even check how we are functioning? I actually feel personally that your mental health has the capacity to control, so we say we have your spirit, your body, and your soul. What we call soul, we call the mind, right? Which is your mental health. Now, I feel like your mind has it, which is your brain, has the capacity to control your spirit and your body. Of course, according to research, majority of the physical illnesses that people are treating as a result of unresolved mental health and emotional issues. And people get to say, oh, my spirit is down. Why is your spirit down? It's your mind. Are you dealing with it? So this is cultural. It is rooted, this ignorance is rooted in our culture. You don't take your matter. So when it's still very fresh, you are not going to talk. When it's becoming serious, you are expected to man up. Don't cry. You see, I mean, it's like people feel like it's a bad thing to say, I don't know how I'm feeling. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to know how you are feeling. It's okay to seek for help. It doesn't even make you weak. People say, let the weak say I'm strong. That's what they say. And I tell them, capacity to be able to recognize that you are weak is a sign of strength. Weak people don't recognize that they are weak. People need to begin to understand that as long as you are human, these things are going to affect you. People feel like, when you tell them talk to therapists, talk to counselor, like I never chop, I go to talk to counselor. Like you don't get it. You look at this thing, like I said, is cultural. Look at our schools. Look at our hospitals. Look at the churches. Look at the mosque. Look at the people that are counseling there. Are they professionals?
Right. Exactly.
Look at our schools. Even the schools, the majority of them, the reason why they have counselor is so that, they will say we have a counselor. It's not that they will say, the counselors complain, I will end with this, that, they don't allow us to see these children because they need to go to class. So the children are having issues, you know, whatever is disturbing them, they are not able to see the counselor because they need to be in class. When I speak to them, I tell them it is better for these children not to go to class and they see their counselors rather than having all of these issues and be going to see. What are you going to see to talk about or to listen to? So it's ignorance and it is rooted in our culture. And the earlier we realize it, the better. So if somebody is saying, I want to be a psychiatrist, I want to wake up, I want to be a counselor, a therapist, a psychologist, your parent will look at you. Is that lawyer? Is it law? Is it medicine? But now it's changing anyway, but I think we have a long way to go. I don't even know how we are going to meet up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tolan. It's something I remember Dr. Robert, who's going to be here tomorrow, usually says, people come out and say, I've never been to the hospital in my entire life before. Just one time. And the doctor said, if you had only been there once, you would have detected this thing. But he uses it as testimony. I've never been to hospital as a sign of spirituality.
Yeah.
But let's get back to Dr. Maymunah Kadri. Dr. Kadri, one of the few select consultant neuropsychiatrists left out of the 300. I can imagine how that makes you feel, but overstressed, I can imagine. Overstressed. So help us understand, you know,
It's
offer no good transfer, I agree. How are we breaking the stereotypes and the ceilings that Dr. Tolu talks about?
So I think it's good for us at this point to educate all of us what mental health really is. And let's distinguish it from what mental illness is. When we look at the wordhead of the definition of mental health, is the ability for an individual, number one, to realize your potentials in life. Number two, the ability to deal with the day's stressors of life. Number three, the ability to work productively and fruitfully. And the last but not the least, the ability to give back to the society or the ability to be useful to the society. So when we look at this beautiful definition, we all have mental health, but what we do not all have is mental illness. So when people start looking at the word mental without hearing whether it is health or illness, it becomes a major issue. And that is what leads to stigma and discrimination attached to mental health, people living with mental illnesses, including their families. So it is pertinent for us to know there's a distinction between mental health and mental illness. While we all have mental health, 1 in 4 Nigerians will have a mental illness in their lifetime. It does not necessarily mean that you will have it now. It just means that something may happen. Maybe you have a genetic predisposition or a family history or somebody in the family who has a mental illness. That may be the reason why you may have a mental illness. It may be relationship issues. People are being served breakfast on a day-to-day basis. That may be a problem. I don't know about the three of you in the studio right now, but financial and economic issue is a big problem right now. So there are several reasons why people can have a mental illness. So there's that distinction. Other stereotypes that we need to also break down is the fact that people will always think that once you have a mental illness, you will never get better. No. The man and the woman you see on the street, they just form 1% of people living with mental illnesses. Trust me when I tell you 99% of people living with mental illnesses, we, 4 of us right now, including every other person that is not on the street. So it's just 1% we see on the street. And that is why we say many are mad, but few are roaming. So that person on the street, can that person get productive? Can that person be treated for mental illness? Yes. Mental illness is just like other non-communicable diseases like cancer, hypertension, diabetes, obesity can be treated, but they may not necessarily be curable. That's why we are still saying cancer doesn't have a cure. So mental illness fall under this non-communicable disease. Another stereotype we need to also break is that people with mental illnesses are violent. Violence is human. Just like any other person that can be violent, somebody living with mental illness can be violent. It does not mean that because the person has mental illness is more violent than the person that doesn't have a mental illness. The third, another very serious stereotype I need to break is the fact that people with mental illnesses cannot hold down a job. I will tell you for free, we are working with 22 corporate organizations in Africa right now with over 1 million employees and their families. These people are, some of them are C-suite, chief executive officers, chief communication officers, CTOs, top executives. They are holding down their jobs. They are among the 4,500 companies. They are productive, but some of them are dealing with mental illnesses. For the fact that they show up every day is never written on anybody's face. So people living with mental illnesses, when people say they cannot hold down a job, it is a myth and not a fact. So these are some of the stereotypes we need to break. Are mental illnesses treatable? Yes. They are not only treatable, they are beatable and they are manageable. Best thing for us is to normalize mental health conversations. And that has been my mantra from day one. Normalizing mental health conversations by building a culture of compassion. Because when we build culture of compassion, it's easy for people to speak up and speak out. And it's also easy to encourage help-seeking behaviors. Because when people are encouraged to seek for help, they'll seek for help from the right places, the right people, and the right time. And this is very key, because when you get help from the right people, the right places, and the right time, it will help in managing the individual well. And what are the things we are looking at for functionality? Ability to be productive, ability to deal with the day stressors of life, ability to interact with yourself and interact with other people. Once those things are covered, it makes it very easy for you to, do a lot of things that you are supposed to be here on earth to do in your pursuit for greatness. So we all have to understand that making mental health and well-being for a global priority, it needs all hands on deck to make it happen.
Fantastic, Dr. Maymunah, fantastic. But let's come back to Dr. Tolu in the house. Yes, we're talking about a national priority. This also brings to mind the concern around accessibility and affordability, which could also be. I mean, I had a patient. Not that I'm not a doctor of any sort. So I just run. I was
afraid.
I had a patient who called on my show, on a radio show, talked about how her father raped her while she was young. She's had a baby. She can't keep a relationship. This is over 10 years after. And then I was like, okay, fine. I will recommend a mental health a counselor for you, which I did, a personal friend of mine. And then the doctor comes and said, Dave, your patient can't even afford consultation fee. I said, do that for free. I'll pay you for that. And she says, okay, now I have done my diagnosis and these are the issues. She needs consultation for a month. Maybe I talk to her 2 or 3 times a week and a month. She can't pay a dime. So that in itself is a major concern around the people with mental health concerns. Mental health, yes, not mental illness now. Mental health concerns, affordability, and with less than 300, the likes of Dr. Maymunah, how many can she handle in a day or in a month or in a year? These are huge concerns. If we're making it a national priority, how do we navigate these challenges?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, psychiatrists are medical doctors. And if you look at the theme for this year, mental health, it was talking about mental well-being. Yeah. So it's not even talking about mental illness, right? So just to buttress what you are saying, these are people that are probably have not gotten to the end of the spectrum. They are not ill, they are still functional, right? But they are dealing with issues like this. You know, if we understand how mental health affects us, I actually think everybody needs help, especially in this part of the world. If you look at our upbringing, the social and cultural upbringing, I feel everybody needs help. The culture of silence, of not talking, of, you know, the stigmatization and all of that. You know, people feel like people that, you know, they have more problem. I say we don't even have data. So we don't know what is going on here in a lot of cases because people would rather keep quiet. If you find, I ask people, how many of you, if I go for training, how many of you that are adults here could raise your hand that nobody has ever done something to affect your stages of sexual development? Nobody has ever touched you wrongly. Nobody has ever made a funny comment about you sexually till you become adult in this country. Is it possible? You can hardly find something like that, but we have data to test all of this. And when any of your stages of development, when you look at the spectrum, the spheres of mental health, we're talking about your physical health, psychological health, your mental, psychological, emotional, behavioral, and intellectual and sexual. If you look at all of these spheres, I don't think there's anybody in this part of the world that a stage has not been uttered in their stages of development in all of these spheres. And then we think we can now grow up and all of these things will just disappear without taking care of them. It's impossible. Emotions don't go away unresolved until you deal with them and put them into perspective. In a lot of cases, what we do is repress them, but they begin to affect how we function. This is mental health. This is not just about people that are mad on the streets, that are mad on the street. Now, that is bring it to just explain this person you are talking about. A lot of us, I'll give you an example. The way you attach with your caregiver as a child is the way you are going to attach romantically as an adult. It's called attachment problem. So a lot of people, the way they were parented as a child is the same way they will fall in love. And there are 5 different types of attachment. I'll give you an example of one so you understand what I'm saying. Anxious attachment are people that are parents that don't know what to expect. Today, daddy is nice. Tomorrow, daddy is a lion. Today, mommy is available. Next, tomorrow, mommy is not available. These people become very anxious. As babies, as kids, these are children that when you see their parent going out, they cry abnormally. Do we pay attention to all of that? No. When this person becomes an adult, he began to become clingy. Relationship is going away. The person is saying, I'm not doing again. She can't leave. She want to commit suicide. It's coming from somewhere. So this is one out of thousands, I could say thousands, of issues that could go wrong while you were growing up. This is the reality of almost all of us. And then we become adults. We expect to be functional without doing something about it, without even trashing all of this. Now, that is to explain what that other lady is going through. How many people have gone through rape and able to resolve it as adults? How many people even know the reason why they fall in love with the people they fell in love? How many people know why they are angry? Why their personality is the way they are? Why you think the way you do? Do you even know anything about all of that? Do you know who you are? How many? We don't even, this is mental health.
You know who you are.
We don't even know all of this. So, to let you know that everybody should begin to take this seriously. This example you gave is like the reality of almost everybody. It might not be the aspect of rape. Look at the other side. You'll find yourself somewhere. So what should you do? It's a national crisis. People should understand. In fact, even I feel like the problem, I don't know, I can begin to explain that to you in a different way. I feel like the problem with us as Africans is not poverty. I think it's poverty of the mind. It's crazy. And until we deal with that, we won't get it right, even politically and economically. Because you are the way you think is the way you are. So bringing it to that, accessibility, affordability. So I run the Institute of Counseling in Nigeria. And we have a quarterly free counseling, 30 days. The last one we didn't have up to 5 people. We will run adverts, we will put money, talk about it on radio, talk about it on Facebook, nobody will come. So the level of ignorance is even affecting. People they feel like, we're African, we'll be fine. You know, they don't even understand the place. So it's more of ignorance than accessibility to me. Of course, I understand that when it gets to psychotic stage, of course, you know, the psychiatrists are not there, you know, because, I mean, the population is very low compared to the population of the country. But when you are even talking, we are raising counselors, mental health counselors. That's my job. And I mean, that's fair. And we are raising professional counselors. But I tell you, people will still not come out. The last one we did it in partnership with Access Bank. And because we did it in partnership, you need to see the way they were rushing in. As soon as they come in, and then you send them a form, please fill this 1-page form, they will disappear. They don't feel like they have problem because they don't understand the implication. I'm very passionate about mental health because I understand the ripple effects. I understand how this thing affects us as a community, as a society as a whole. Yes, we need to do more. Counselors are needed, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. In fact, I feel like the psychiatrists are overwhelmed because people are not even talking to, you know, because in the field of mental health, you know, you have different manpower that are needed. So if you're able to talk to professional mental health counselors, probability that you might not even need a psychiatrist is very high if you deal with those issues before they become terrible, right? But at the end of the day, when you don't deal with it, that means you are putting the burden on the psychiatrist whose job is to give you medication, right? So, and I feel like as much as people get well from mental illnesses, but it has to be managed. It has to be managed. The triggers will be following you everywhere. It has to be managed. And I feel like even on your job, I feel like people could do better if they are not dealing with issues. As much as you can rise to the top of your career, I think it could be easier for you. I think life will be more interesting. I think you could give better than what you are giving if you are functioning optimally.
Dr. Tolu, we'll come back, talk to you about the community and what other stakeholders are doing together with the counseling so we can have a clearer picture of what is going on. Talk about clearer picture. Let's get back to Dr. Maymunah Kadri's World Mental Health Day, and we have two fantastic resource persons here to give us an insight into what is happening. Dr. Maymunah, national and state policy, something David talked about just got me thinking. You walk into a primary healthcare center, even if you had health insurance, I don't know if mental health care is contained in it. I'm not too sure about that. But talk to us about state and national policy, how it's impacting our overall picture.
This October 10, 2022, and I'm so sad to announce that we don't still have a mental health act in Nigeria. We are still using the Lunacy Act of 1958. So abhorring, so saddening, so I don't know the adjective to use, because our laws are, you know, in synchrony with the British laws, and they have aborted that Lunacy Act as far back as, you know, in their 60s. Or this is where we are in 2022. We still have a mental health bill in the National Assembly. Yes, we have gone through the stages of, you know, public hearing, the readings, you know, it's now in the presidency. But of course, being in presidency does not mean that it has to be, you know, it's now an act. So we have to still wait for it to be passed, and then of course implementation comes in. Then let's go to the Abuja Declaration of 2001. The Abuja Declaration of 2001 stipulated that every African country should have 50% of their budget to health. We still have less than 10% of our budget to health. And by the time it trickles down to mental health, it's like 1 or 2%. So health finance is also a big issue. Now let's go to the National Health Insurance Scheme. Now National Health Insurance Act, right? Do you know that 10%, not up to 10% of Nigerians are still covered by the National Health Insurance Act? Is that not a problem? We have over almost 30,000 primary healthcare centers. We have to understand the public-private partnership in ensuring that mental health is instituted into our primary healthcare centers. What do we see in our primary healthcare centers in Nigeria? In debilitated states, goats and cows and sheep that sleep there. Over 77% of Nigerians pay out of their pocket to access health care. Is that not a big issue? So when we put all this in this perspective, we will understand why, if we are talking about health equity, and now let's narrow down to mental health equity, we are on a long journey. Accessibility, affordability, availability, and of course, acceptability to the people that will use these services is what we want to achieve when it comes to universal health coverage. We are not yet there. We still need like 20, 30 years strategy plan for us to get there. So these are some of the things we are talking about. And let's break it down to our triggers as Nigeria. The word Nigeria is a trigger to our mental health, to our sanity. Because the end in Nigeria is naira devaluation. How much is a dollar to naira right now? How much is a pound to a naira right now? Is insecurity, banditry, kidnapping. The Abuja Kaduna rate, when was the last 23 people released? The G is government policies that are not in tandem with our current realities. The E, electricity challenges. How many people have 24 hours light in there? If you have 24 hours light, you are paying after. You know what you are paying. Estates that are doing it, personal homes that are doing it, they know how much they are paying. The road networks that are not working. I'm an Aochi girl from Edo State. For me to move from Lagos to Aochi, I know how many hours I will spend on the road. The R is the road network. The other I is inflation. 100,000 is behaving like 10,000 naira right now. With all this accumulated, the A leads to anger. That's why when I said, Tolu, good morning, Tolu, you say, what is good about the money? Oh, how are you? People are just angry. So these are some of the things we are talking about. That we are in low and middle income countries. We are the most populous black race in the world. We do not have a mental health act. How do we expect to make things work when we do not have the right policies in place that can help the average Nigerian? We need to be able, now we are going to the political terrain where we are all campaigning for our different candidates and all that. But if we do not do the right things, that is why people will go and steal billions for generations yet to born, and you think that is not a mental health issue. Why would one single man be in charge of 1 trillion or steal 100 billion? What are you stealing it for? So you think it's that man on the street that has a mental issue? Everybody deserves to have an assessment. Why you do your health care or your medical examination or your medical health check or your medical test every year, also ask to check for your mental health status. Because it's a spectrum, like what Tolu has been saying. And that spectrum is for you to know which part of the spectrum you belong in. And if you do not do your mental health assessment and check, you do not know when you are on. Some people are already sitting on the fence. It's just a little thing that they will think of. And what is that one thing that can make people to think of is the word stress. 90% of the reason why you go and see a doctor amongst the four of us is because you are stressed. And what is the S? It's S because of things self. Sometimes we are the ones that stress ourselves. We believe everybody is doing well and we think we are not doing well. The thing is trauma. A lot of us are moving around with unresolved traumas. And what do unresolved traumas do? You bleed on people that never hurt you because hurt people hurt people. The R is relationship issues. There are so many people that have relationship issues. When I was a resident in psychiatric hospital, 8 out of 10 of the female patients here were brought on admission because of relationship issues. I've been running Pinnacle Medical Services now for the past 10 years, and same statistics shows. And of course, the SCRE, economic and financial issues, can easily make you to have a mental issue. The second S is sickness. If you are not, if somebody in your family is sick, it also drains you. And the last S is school and work. Look at remote work. Look at going to school. A lot of these things are the things that are affecting us. And we need to understand our triggers. But most importantly, on a national level, we need to be able to pass the mental health bill into an act and ensure it is implemented so that people can assess mental health care from the right people, the right places, and the right, right time. And of course, make it available, affordable, and of course acceptable.
I'm short for words, Dr. Maymunah. I mean, I really don't know what to say anymore. I'm looking at all the boxes that you just brought up, and I'm trying to tick all the boxes, and I just realized that I could barely go 10% of those boxes. So I think I also need help at this point in time. Yeah, but we said on the show earlier that everyone in Nigeria, I mean, basically with what we are faced with as a people, what comes to us every morning. You wake up, you're in Lagos traffic, you wake up, area boys hitting your side mirror, an Okada man is breaking your side mirror. You just realize that everything just comes up on you and you're like, what is going on? And then you get to work, and then your security man is acting funny. It's a huge challenge that we need to take a lot more. That is why we're discussing this morning. We need to create this awareness. We need to bring to the fore what the issues really are, why people should begin to understand. I like what Dr. Tolu said. He said, we don't know who we are. That for me is very key. So the mission for us this morning is getting everyone to begin to find out who they really are, understanding who they really are. It's not going to help them begin to know what the issues are and what to be addressed.
Right. True.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking also too, you know, it's like a crossword puzzle, should I say crossword puzzle, or role acting, where everyone has roles to play.
Right.
And we've identified so many key players in the whole story,
Right.
from the people who are going through abuse for themselves, and those who are providers of the healthcare are also part of the equation. But talk to us about institutions, cultural, because you've said also too that there's a problem with our culture in the way we address mental health.
Right.
So you have cultural institutions, say traditional rulers, and you know the makeup of them. We also have religious bodies too. What has your interaction been with them in helping resolve?
So something is coming to mind. You know, we have a topic at the Institute of Counseling. It talks about the development of counseling practice. And you understand that counseling practice started from the herbalist, the babas that you normally go to. You know, when you go to them and ask them that, oh, I have this problem, they ask you certain questions about what is going on. I mean, somebody said that there was a particular woman that went for, she was witnessing abuse in her marriage. The husband is always physically abusing her. And then she went to see this Baba. And when Baba began to ask questions, Baba found out that she talks too much. Of course, that is not an excuse for abuse. I'm just trying to make a point. She will verbally abuse the husband till the man will become frustrated. And then Baba now gave her something. I said, put this thing, anytime your husband is talking, put this white chalk in your mouth, and the man will never beat you. And then when she gets home, as soon as the husband began to say, why did you put it here? Instead of her to just flare up like she normally do, she would put that thing in her mouth. And then she will not be able to talk. And then she came back and said, Baba, thank you, it works. So I'm just trying to let you know that, you know, this is the way the mental health counseling, you know, started, right? So people need to understand that. Let me say this. The more developed we are, the more civilized we become, the more incongruence we become. Now, what am I trying to say? The more civilized we become, the more choices we are exposed to. The more choices you are exposed to, the more confused you become. For example, let me use gender as an example. Gender is either you are a male or female, at least in Nigeria today. But we know the reality all over the world. There are today 101 different type of gender. What is that doing to your brain? It's getting you more confused, more incongruence. So today you are this, you are this. So you don't even know which one to choose. The more that happens to you, the more you will need help. And this is where people need to begin to understand that what was working before can no longer work. So all this talk, or the religious organizations kind of counseling that was working cannot work, because we don't have option. We have to grow. The world is a global village, so you cannot say we are on our own, we will not join them. We don't even make anything as Africans anyway. They do all our researchers don't have access to finance, to all of that. So they do the research for us. They tell us the outcome. And then when they get the outcome, they put measures in place. They put law in place. You can hear what doctor said, that even as at today in Nigeria, the Mental Health Act has not been passed into law. These people, as they are coming with a conclusion, they are making laws to guide it, to protect it. But we will just import it like that. And then we start running with it. Now, it is high time we realize that it is no longer business as usual. One, there's nothing we can do about the civilization. It will come upon us. It's a global village anyway. There's nothing we could do. Secondly, because these things are coming upon us, we need to be prepared, because what was working before will no longer. Churches are struggling with their counseling. I mean, relationship issues. I mean, you heard what she said. 80% of psychiatric issues as a result of unresolved relationship. Do you know how powerful relationship is to a human being, especially when it's romantic, emotional? It drives your being. And then you are having issues in that place. You don't even feel like all you can do is go to mountain and pray. I feel like sometimes God will even be laughing at us.
Yeah, Dr. Tolu, I know there's so much we need to talk about, but how time flies, so we're having a good time. Dr. Maymunah, we need to go in 60 seconds, just wrap up your thoughts on the World Mental Health Day, maybe a message or two for our viewers this morning. In 60 seconds, Dr. Maymunah.
Yes, awesome. I believe making mental health and well-being for all a global priority starts with us. And that is why I've made it very easy, breezy, and achievable. Self-care is not selfishness, it's self-preservation, and it is not me first, it is me too. With the S, you are more self-aware, you know your strengths and weaknesses, you're able to manage your stressors. With the E, exercise should never be underestimated. No, exercise, it boosts up your feel-good hormones and help you to relieve anxiety and fear. The L is limit exposure to news and social media. All install apps that are not good for your mental health, mute notifications, exit WhatsApp groups that are not good for you. F is find and engage in pleasurable activities that are good for you and for your well-being. C is connect with a healthy support system. The A is ask for help. It's a sign of strength and never a sign of weakness. The R is rest and sleep. There's no award or accolade for the busiest person on earth. Find time, 7 to 9 hours is what is recommended. And the last but not the least is eat right. Not only to stay alive, but also to boost your immunity. So pick out of this SELFCARE today and start running with it, because make mental health a global priority starts with you.
All right, thank you very much. Always a pleasure speaking with you, Dr. Maymunah Yusuf Kadri, who's consultant neuropsychiatrist. Thank you very much for joining us on News Hub. And happy birthday again from all of us to Papa.
Yes, and the venue. The venue on time.
And thank you again very much, Dr. Tolu Okoye-Igaire, Executive Director, Institute of Counseling of Nigeria, right? Thank you very much, and we'll definitely have to have you over again and again, because what we had to do was a real crash course from the very best I can imagine in the field, and I will have to go watch this over and over again to really get the message. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Right. All right, so that's our show, people out there. That's how we do it. This is where we draw the curtain on the show. It's been fantastic, 3 hours, 3 hours on a Monday morning. And I hope you're enjoying the holiday. We really have to go right now. I am David Ubabadike. We'll do this again tomorrow, God willing.
And I'm Aurora. Make sure that this is for you, Ura. Shush! Hey, Wahiri.